Hey guys, it's Chris at Highland Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. And of course, to everybody who's watching, if you'd like to help support this channel financially so I can keep making guitar building videos, I would encourage you to visit eguitarplans.com or my Highline Guitars merch store. There's links in the description below. And any purchase you make there is going to help support this channel financially. And if you want to keep it simple, you can click the thanks button and leave a tip in the amount that you think is fair. And then, of course, if you don't want to spend any money at all, but would still like to support the channel, I would encourage you to, at the very least, click that thumbs up button down below. So what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is I am going to start carving the body for the 6-string multi-scale fan fret guitar. And that means I'm going to be doing all the work on my CNC machine. So we got a lot to cover. Let's get started. Now, the process of carving the body out of this blank that I've prepared means that I'm going to have to carve first on the top side of the body blank and then on the back side, which means I'll carve one side and then I will flip it over and carve the other side. And to do this successfully, I have to make sure that when I flip the blank over to carve the other side, it is registered with everything that I carved on the front side. That means I have to make sure that the body is positioned on the CNC machine in a known location, like the very center. Then I will home the machine, which tells the controller exactly where the very center of the tip of the bit is. From there, I can then position the spindle to the lower left corner of the blank. And at that point, the CNC machine knows exactly where the center of the tip of the bit is in relation to the blank, so that when I send the G-code to carve into the blank, it knows exactly where to start carving on the surface. And then once this side is done, I'll flip it over and do the same thing. The machine will know exactly where the spindle is located and will carve the back so that it is perfectly registered with the front. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can register the position of the blank on a CNC machine. Some guys like to use fixtures, pin alignment systems. And what I like to do is to simply measure and mark the center of the blank and measure and mark it at the very edge. So I'll have a mark here and a mark here, which is actually the glue seam. The glue seam serves as the center line. But then I'll measure and mark the center of the blank on each side of its width. And then those marks are positioned according to lines that I have engraved in my CNC machine's wasteboard. Those will position the blank exactly in the center. So like I said, I'm going to use that glue seam for the vertical center line. So now I have to measure and mark the horizontal center line. So I'll just take a ruler and I will measure. The blank is about 2 1/8 inches long. So at 10 1/16, I will place a tick mark here. And I will do the same thing on the other side. (10 1/16 inch). Now I have to extend this down to the bottom so that I can more accurately line it up to the engraved lines on the CNC machine. So I'll take my carpenter's square here. And I will position it so that I can extend that tick mark. Do that on both sides. then what I'm going to do, I have an engraved line that runs all the way it's parallel to the y-axis of the CNC machine, and it runs all the way to the back of the wasteboard. And then I have another engraved line that parallels the x-axis, and they come to a center point right about here. So what I'll do is I'm going to place the glue seam right over this y-axis line, and then I will position this mark right over the x-axis engraved line. And I'm just sort of roughly positioning it at this point. And then I'm going to put my clamps down. And I'll just sort of loosely clamp it into place initially, because what I'll do is once I have the clamps installed, I can then fine-tune the position of the blank, make sure it's accurate. Okay, the next thing I've got to do is home the machine. Okay, I've already installed the bit that I'm going to use for the first carving operation, which is a 1/16 of an inch diameter drill bit. But what I have to do is I have to position the very tip right on the lower left corner of my blank. Well, since I know that my wasteboard is 48 inches by 48 inches, that means that this y-axis engraved line is 24 inches in from the center of the drill bit. So I have to jog the spindle 24 inches over to this position here, and then 24 inches back. That would place the tip of the bit right over the very center of my blank. And then I can measure or position the tip of the bit for the z-axis height. So first I'm going to jog it 24 inches over to the right. Then I'm going to jog it back 24 inches. So now the tip of the bit is right directly over the center of the blank. But I'm going to lower it down a couple of inches so that I can probe the bit. And what probing does is it positions the bit a set height directly over the blank so that the bit will be in the z-axis home position. And we use this special probing device to do this. And what it does is it puts an electrical signal through the wire so that when the bit touches this brass block, the connection is closed, and that stops the bit from moving down and then backs it off a predetermined height. So the Z-axis home position is now established. But what I have to do is move the spindle forward and then over to place it over the corner so that it's in the XY home position. Now the spindle has been homed to the workpiece. It's in the workpiece home position. From here I'm ready to start carving. So now I can send the G-code, and what it's going to do for this first carving operation is drill some pilot holes that will be used to mount the bridge as well as the humbucker pickups. The next carving operation is actually the first of two related carving operations that will be done to cut and carve out the neck and pickup pockets. But the first operation is going to use a 2-flute spiral downcut bit to start that cutting operation, because a downcut bit is going to produce a cleaner cut in the very surface. However, it's not efficient for removing the wood as the pocket gets deeper. So I'm going to do an initial cut about 1/4 of an inch deep using the downcut bit. Then I'll switch to the same size 1/4 inch diameter upcut bit to finish carving out those pockets. So I have to first remove the 1/16 inch drill bit that I just used. And that means I have to remove not only the bit, but I have to change the collet as well. Now, because I changed the bit, I have to reprobe the bit in order to set the Z-axis home position. So to do that, I'm just going to jog the spindle over the top of the blank. Then I'll jog the spindle back to the XY home position. Now we're set to carve the next operation. All right, for the next carving operation, which is actually going to be the last carving operation on the front of the guitar body, I'm going to be carving a beveled edge that goes all the way around the perimeter of the front of the guitar. And I'm going to be using the same bit that I have in the machine right now that I just used for carving the pocket, so I don't have to swap the bit, nor do I have to probe it. Everything is ready to go. However, this carve will consist of two different carving operations, a rough cut and then a finish pass. A rough cut, obviously, as the name would indicate, cuts out, it hogs out most of the wood, but it leaves a very rough stair-stepped surface. The finishing pass then cleans that up and makes the surface much smoother. Now, with CNC, you still have to do some sanding afterwards to get the surface really smooth. However, the amount of sanding will depend on your finishing strategy. And you can get fairly sophisticated in your finishing strategy by doing multiple finishing passes, which will result in a super smooth surface that barely needs any sanding. However, I find that that takes an awful lot of time. So I'm fine with just doing a simple single finishing pass, and then I'll go back and sand it with some 220 grit or maybe 150 grit if necessary to get the surface smooth enough to apply finish to. So let's get started on that last carving pass. Okay, so I'm done with the top side of the body blank. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the gantry out of the way. I'm going to vacuum up all these wood chips, and then I'm going to flip the blank over, get it registered on the table, and start carving the other side. All right, so the first carving operation I've got to do on the back side is I'm going to drill the holes for mounting the neck. So that means I have to change to the appropriate size bit, which is, in this case, is going to be an 1/8 inch diameter drill bit. And now I have to probe the bit so that I can set it into the proper Z-axis home position. Okay, so now what I've got to do is raise the spindle and swap out that 1/8 inch bit for my 16th inch bit, because the next carving operation is going to be to drill the pilot holes that hold the control cavity cover in place on the back of the guitar body. Okay, so for the next cut, I'm going to once again raise the spindle and swap out the bit for my 1/4 inch diameter 2-flute spiral down cut bit so that I can start to carve the pockets for the control cavity as well as the recesses for the neck bolt ferrules. And I'm using that down cut bit because it produces a cleaner surface. Then I'll switch over to the upcut bit to clear out the cavity. Now I'm going to switch to the upcut bit so I can hog out the majority or the remainder of my control cavity. Okay, so now I'm ready to do the last carving operations for the guitar body, and that will include the bevel on the back as well as the entire perimeter shape. Well, guys, as luck would have it, I've run into a couple of problems, and these are problems that I can't fix. So let me explain what happened. The top side of the guitar body turned out perfectly, exactly as I wanted it to. Everything is positioned and centered exactly the way it should be. On the back side, it would appear as though everything has turned out perfectly. But if you look really closely, you'll notice there's a problem here at the back of the control cavity, specifically where the recess for the cover is going to sit. I made this little area too thin. So when it carved out, the forces of carving tore out some of that wood. And there's really no way to fix this. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to probably resize and slightly reposition the control cavity cover so that I won't have this problem. The other issue that happened is apparently I must have somehow miscalculated the depth of the control cavity itself. Because normally I like to make the top area about 1/8 of an inch thick. But for some reason, it's barely 1/16 of an inch thick. And I can press it and bend the top. And I think that with just a little bit of force, I could punch my finger through that area. That's not going to work. I could probably find a way to reinforce it somehow. But this was actually scrap wood that I had in my stash for years. And I was just looking for a possible excuse to use it on a guitar build. And I thought that this would work out really well. In truth, what it turns out, it served as a great prototype. And now I can make a couple of minor changes, which is unfortunate because those changes are so small and so minimal. But that's what it's going to take to get this guitar, the body of the guitar, perfect. So I think what I'm going to do for the next episode is I'm going to make a new blank and carve a new body after making these adjustments. So I apologize for not having the body finished for you today. However, I hope that this video will serve as a learning experience for you as well as it has for me about double checking everything that you do to make sure that you're taking everything into consideration. The placement of pockets and depths and thicknesses of wood, all these little details that you've got to get just right, or you could run into unfortunate mistakes like this. So, yeah, I guess it's a live and learn situation. I've learned, and now it's time to live. So I'm going to head down to the lumber supplier and start looking for a couple of fresh slabs of wood for the body and the top, and we'll continue from there. So until the next episode, as always, click the thumbs up button, click subscribe, share, comment, visit eguitarplans.com, visit my Highline Guitars merch store, click the thanks button, all those good things. And until the next episode, take care, stay safe, and I hope you'll be back for more exciting adventures in building a 6-string multi-scale fan fret guitar.